Good evening, Billy O here. Another issue tonight of Huns history, and tonight we have a extra special guest, Brent Graff, Captain Poot. Brent, how you doing?
Doing great, Bill. How are you?
Doing good too, man. It's great to see you. You're up in the Northwest Texas area?
We're up in the Panhandle, just south of Amarillo.
Amarillo by morning.
Yeah.
So before we get into anything serious, how did you get the nickname Captain Poot?
The cape. It was a Halloween costume, and it came off of when Cinemax first came out. They did a spoof on Star Wars with Captain Poot fighting the evil dweebloids, and anyway, so I made a Captain Poot cape, and it became a very popular Halloween outfit.
And this was before the Huns, and you brought that moniker with you to the Huns.
That's correct, yeah. And whenever I was, before I joined the Huns, I played a couple years with the Mad Dogs in Midland, Odessa, played against the Huns, and always got along great with everybody, and started to develop some great friendships. And anyway, I guess
the Odessa trip was always a great trip to play the Mad Dogs, no doubt about it.
Yeah, it was always fun. The Snow Bowl was a lot of fun when we played there at Burfield with 6 inches of snow, and that was a blast. The cape was out around the burning trash can barrel with, I guess, Bill Jevrud and Rick Russell sharing a little bit of warming me up stuff. So anyway, we became really close after that, and that's when the Huns became part of my family, even before I joined them.
When did you join the Huns?
It was that following year, so it'll be the 85-86 season. And I played a year or so kind of sporadically, and then the next year.
Tell me about your early experiences with the Huns there in the mid to late 80s.
Well, it was a great group of guys. Of course, I already knew them from playing against them. And then when I first came out, so you should come out to practice, and there were 5 or 6 guys there. So the Acuñas were there. The core of that, I guess the guys that came to practice the most would be the Acuñas, and usually half of them at a time. And then James Elston, Rick Russell, Jack Bloom. So Rick and Jack would kind of alternate, if I remember right, Tuesdays and Thursdays, depending on who was running the bar or opening the bar that night. And then Jack, Rick Harris Curry was out a lot. David Pelton was always there. He was a rock. And
David Pelton is still a rock.
Yeah, he sure is. Great guy. Great guy.
And you carried through into the 90s. You were a part of the club, the overall squad in those playoff runs. And
yeah.
You were big in sevens too, right? Why don't you tell me about both those things?
Well, we'll start with the playoff team with Don Chandler and some of those guys have already talked about, and Carl talked about the 93 team that went to the Final Four, which was an awesome team. Awesome to be on that. I started about half the games. Glenn Turnbull started half the games at number 8. So we alternated there. But they've already talked about that, so we could talk that to death. The year before that was pretty special. That was the year, as I recall, that Jay and Terry came back out. And we made it to the TRUs, and we took runner-up. Bay Area beat us right at the very end on a penalty kick. And the special part about that, unfortunately, that was the weekend that the Acuña's father died. And so, a minute shout out to all the Acuñas. And
you lost Jay Rudd too, because he's married to Loretta.
We played that weekend without Jay, without all the Acuñas. And I don't remember if Terry may have, but we were missing 5 of our starting players. But Terry may have missed too, but he may have played. I can't recall for sure. But everybody just filled in and sucked it up, and we dang near won it. We really should have. And that year we would have
kickers
won the national too. Yeah, well, dang ref. But anyway, that's it. You always got to blame it on the ref. But the area played a heck of a game, and we played a heck of a game, and they ended up on top. So, or else we'd have been in the Final Four that year as well. So that
let's talk about sevens a little bit. Sevens was not a big thing when I played in the mid to late 70s and early 80s. Yeah. And the Huns ended up having, as I understand it, an incredible amount of success in sevens, and that became a very important part of our culture and still is today. John T. Reese told me you had the best ball fake in Huns history. So talk to me a little bit about sevens and your sevens career.
Well, first, John T., if you're watching this, thanks. I'll send this in the mail to you. It's going a long ways in Mexico. Well, thanks. I did love sevens, and when I first started playing with the Huns, everybody would just get together a team for the Corpus tournament, and that was about it. But everybody pretty well wanted to let their bodies heal and to relax. And anyway, Pelton was a real catalyst to helping the team grow in sevens. So he and I kind of took the reins with the sevens program and decided, we're going to be working out anyway. We might as well be playing. And so we developed some pretty strong sevens teams. At first it was a ragtag bunch, and then it got to where nobody wanted to play us because we ended up being kind of sneaky, scary, gonna get you. And we won the Corpus tournament. Let's see. I don't know if they can see that there. This bunch of guys right here won the Corpus tournament first time. Great team there. And this is Bruce, Cunha, Murray, Jerry was there, James Michael, Dave Zach, John Alvarez, David Cunha, Artie, Pelton, and me. And we just dominated that tournament. And then we started dominating a lot of tournaments. Started filling up the trophy case. And there's a couple of people talked about the trophy case where Zach put his head through the trophy case. And I was there that night too. And the real deal on that was we'd started filling up the trophy case. 15s was winning some trophies, and sevens was winning a lot of trophies. We were bringing hardware home almost every tournament, and there wasn't any more room for it. And Zach was in a particular frame of mind. We'll say it that way, where he said, Jack, he goes, we've got to build another trophy case, and you've got to get it done. And Jack says, one of these days. And Zach was goaded, probably, and encouraged. And the next thing you know, he just smacked his head into that. Now, it wasn't glass, that was plexiglass. And he busted the plexiglass. And then we built the nice trophy case, and and we filled it up too.
A pivotal night in Huns history at Nasty's. Everybody wants to talk about that night.
It was a blast. But yeah, the sevens team was great. We ended up having a real solid group of guys that didn't take the summers off. We'd have 20, sometimes 30 people at practice. And, a couple of, we won the Aquafest tournament. That was Bloodfest before it was Bloodfest. And all the big players were there. And we beat all the
that's still a big part of Huns culture to this day. As you know, the guys take the sevens super seriously, and they're really good at it to this day. So it's good y'all got that started.
Yeah, this one was one of my favorite deals, if you can see it or not. This was the Texas Select side that Graham Watson and I were invited to be on. And
that's awesome.
We were.
That's a great jersey right there.
I love that. But Graham and I were the first Huns to be invited to be on the Select side.
On the seven side.
Seven, yeah. And we won that tournament against all the other teams in the West. And then the following year, we had a pretty solid group of guys that was there. You got Ed McGrath, Joe Nanas, Cam Hayes, myself, That's my nephew over in the corner over there. He came down to watch. But Dave Pelton was on that team also. So we had 5 Huns that was on that team. And that was pretty special. I was asked to captain the team, and that was way special. But
I know that the Huns are what it's all about. But I know that the times I got to play on 15s select sides for Texas, it really meant a lot to me. And it's always good to represent your club in those select sides as well, and let those boys know that we can play.
You bet. You're representing Texas and you're representing the Huns. And in those days, the 80s and the early 90s, Alan Sharpley was one of the selectors, and he had a no Huns rule. I mean, no Huns invited. It was always the invitational tryouts. No Huns invited, no Huns to be on the team. But one of the 15 seasons, Chris Chefkis was another one of the selectors with the Dallas Reds. And he came to my house. He goes, "How come you weren't at the tryouts?" I'm like, "Because I wasn't invited." He said, "You were supposed to be." He goes, "That fucking
There was some of that going on in the 70s when I played too, and you just had to bully your way through it. Let me ask you a different question. I asked this of Don because y'all have a little bit of a different perspective, but you, Jack Bloom, TJ Costello, Pelton, Don Chandler, I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody, Mike Martin before he passed. Y'all were all on the Huns Hall of Fame committee and did a great job. I mean, you did a great job with the process. You did a great job with the party. I thought everything was first class, and I didn't hear a negative word about any of it. But it had to be a hard thing to steer all of that. What was it like to be a part of everything from nominations to evaluations to the event?
That was one of the biggest honors to me as a Hun, to be asked by the board to sit on that committee. And the one you're forgetting is yourself. You were on that initial committee. So thanks for your inputs on that too. But that was one of the biggest honors that the current board thought enough of me to say, "Poot, we'd like for you to sit on this committee and to help guide it." And it was so much fun to put together the criteria by which people would be looked at, and to try to streamline that down. And it was, a lot of people had different ideas, and we were able to discuss, and it was majority rules. So we discussed, had good conversations, majority rules, and almost always it was unanimous. And every now and then it wasn't, and anytime it wasn't, it was like, okay, majority rules, let's go. We support and we go forward. But it was so much fun to reconnect with a lot of people that I hadn't been connected with in a while, and it was a blast. I think it was a solid.
Well, I know you and Jack were on a mission to give the Huns a very special event and a very special night. And so on top of everything else, I thought that the experience of that evening and all these different old boys basically sharing the same story about Huns brotherhood was really special.
It was, and we were on a mission, and from the beginning, I would have to say that I go into everything with a lot of enthusiasm. So from the beginning of my playing times to the Hall of Fame, to everything else, I put all my enthusiasm into it, and I enjoyed every minute of that. And it was an outstanding banquet and outstanding.
It was a great night, man. Y'all killed it. It was a great night.
It was fun, and so much support from the current Huns that come out too. That was amazing. To bridge that gap between the old guys and the current guys. Whenever I was playing, the retired players didn't come out to watch, or they weren't involved. Whether they moved out or whatever, moved to a different town. But I didn't know anything about Pat Lockridge or very many of the players unless I played against them or played with them. We didn't know about that. We didn't have that history. It was, yes, they splintered off from the blacks, and that's why we hate them, and they hate us. There you go. but we were a bunch of scrappy guys. And then in 92, this started to make the change. And in 93, definitely a force to be reckoned with. But, you know, the early days of playing with the Huns, a little different than it is now. I still can't get over the lifting in the lineouts.
Crazy.
And substitutions. There's almost free substitutions. Holy smokes. When we were playing.
There's a lot of differences in today's game. We used to get in fist fights in the game, and it wasn't even a penalty.
Yeah. There, you know, back in the day, it was, 2 substitutions at halftime. And then I think.
For injury only.
Well, at a halftime, you could have 2. And then you might have.
In my day, it was for injury only. You had to convince the ref you were hurt.
And sometimes that was easy to do and sometimes not.
Look, we're running short on time at this point. I asked the last few guys who their favorite Huns character was, and a couple of guys said you for being the life of the party with your cape and with your songs. Tell us a little bit about your most memorable Huns character.
There was a lot of characters on the
Pick
Huns.
one.
Well, you can't pick one. You got John Banks. You know, enough said there. I mean, John was the captain's fund before there was a captain's fund. He made more money than a lot of us, and he was always willing to help out with anybody. And he was always.
And he put his arm around new players, and he was funny, man. He was fun.
Oh, he was a hoot. He was a hoot, and it was not uncommon to go into the bar and he'd be bellied up there with his pants down around his ankles and said, check out my tattoo or check out my 3rd testicle. And how did he get away with that anymore? He couldn't. But
we're just going to have to stop on the 3rd testicle. That sounds like it's a whole episode all by itself.
Could be. We would stop right there. It was Super Dave Wirtz was a heck of a character. Great guy. You know, Carl Dahlberg in his own right with his cowboy hat and his Elvis impersonations, and then you know, Dave Zach brought a maturity to the club that hadn't been a seriousness that was outstanding. So you can look at different qualifications.
Well, Poot, it's been an honor talking to you. Thanks for making the time, and thanks for everything you're doing with the Hall of Fame committee. You, Jack, and everybody on your committee. I don't want to forget anybody there. Everybody did a great job.
Well, thanks. And you need to make these longer, Bill. You need to be about another 20 minutes because we're just getting started. But
these kids today have short attention spans, Poot, you know?
Yeah, guess so. But, you know, gosh, it's been a lot of fun. And, you know, always, once a Hun, always a Hun. It's a family. They took me in. And in the 15 years I played rugby, as soon as I started playing with the Huns, then I was home. And it's as simple as that. So
absolutely well said, man. I happen to feel the same way. I know a lot of the old boys, if not all the old boys, do. Thanks again, man. You take care of yourself. I hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate y'all, and up the Huns.
Huns.